We're going to cover some basics on how Macola integrates with WiSys and how WiSys integrates with Macola. So if you visited our website would show that we have integration with Macola in a number of different areas. Today we're going to focus on warehouse management. Each of these little icons at the bottom are modules, and those modules can be purchased independently. You can start with in the warehouse with receiving, move into shipping, manufacturing, and a number of other areas. Today we're just going to focus on the warehouse. How this works and why WiSys is different than other systems is we're built inside the Macola data model. So whether you're using the Macola Progression, ES, or Macola 10, we have a common database that we can seamlessly integrate with. So on top of Macola, when you look at the applications, they are built using our framework of tools. These frameworks of tools are primarily just applications that can tweak the WiSys modules in the field. Your consultant will not have to call somebody back at the shop and ask them to make a programming change. Most of those things can be done in the field or remotely and just updated on your system. That gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility to take a standard process like PO receiving and be able to add something to it that would make it unique for your business to give you a competitive advantage and take some keystroke and validation work out of your process to make it even more efficient. So while we have these other applications here, I'm going to focus on just the warehouse. A lot of people wonder who needs a warehouse system, and sometimes it's pretty obvious, other times it's not. People that have a warehouse. Some people do, some people don't. People that do shipping, people that collect serial or lot numbers, and want to control their inventory down to the bin level, which is a locator in the warehouse of where things are. I'm going to be using bins today in Macola, so you'll see how those work. So if you want to store and ship information on pallets, WiSys has a pallet module. We also can match up with some unique needs. Many times people start to think about warehouse and automation when your customer begins to ask you to do things, and that's going to cause you more labor and time to get things done. Sometimes we can automate those processes. If you're integrating with EDI, many times you need the package structure when you ship, and that's a warehouse function. Many companies have non-Macola data that they want to integrate and look at in line with their Macola data, and we can help do that. But everybody that looks at a warehouse system primarily would like to know what's really happening in real time with your data. So those are reasons that I think are important to look at a warehouse. If you were to get a proposal from WiSys, one of the modules is the Agility WMS Distribution on Handheld. So WiSys is our company, Agility is our brand, and we're going to look at the warehouse module primarily on the handheld, and I'm going to show you some administrative things on how we automate processes on the desktop that match up with the handheld. For those of you that are new to WiSys, WiSys is a third-party company. We are not Macola. We are not the Ativo group. We're a dedicated group of people. We started out 10 years ago as a company designed around WiSys wireless systems, and we've moved into more and more space around the Macola model as we've grown. So what I'm going to start with today is this module, which we call Barcoding Basics, and we're going to talk about a couple of different business scenarios. And one of them is kind of simple. Business scenario number one is, do I have the right inventory? Do I have, what do I have on hand? Is it the right stuff? And can I make my customers happy? Isn't it really always about the customer? Yes, in the warehouse you want to know where things are, but it really is about customer service, being able to go get things efficiently, things like that. So when we talk about where are my items in the warehouse, if you've been using Macola for a while, you know that Macola has a financial location called a warehouse. A warehouse can be 3 digits, 1, 2, 3. It could be CA for California, MA for Massachusetts. You have flexibility in naming those warehouses. But sometimes warehouses are bigger than your garage. Some people that have WiSys have 300,000 square feet, and they have multiple warehouses. So sometimes it's important to know where stuff is in the warehouse, and we use bin locations to do that. So part of the processes that we're going to see today is we're going to look at how do I get my material received, how can I label it, and how can I put it away where other people can find it. This might be a warehouse that would make sense. You have a receiving dock here where things come in, and over here we have the shipping dock. What happens in between is your magic of receiving product in, maybe palletizing it, putting it away, maybe just moving it from here to there, maybe quality checking it. But eventually you want to put it in racking or aisles that may be like A, B, C, D, etc. You may have an overstock area. You may have an area where you move pallets around. And then over here maybe a building area, maybe where you assemble your orders to eventually get them out the shipping door. If you look at a warehouse, many warehouses are laid out like one-way streets, especially around the aisle. So you may do a traffic tour, if you will, to go get material that you'd be instructed to always go in a certain rotation. This helps eliminate people running into each other and moving material and aisles getting jammed. You can see within an aisle we have rack spaces, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So this is typically what the aisle system would look like. In an aisle, my warehouse is laid out with aisle A, with the lowest level being my A0 level, and my second level is really 1. So 0 is my pick location for individual boxes, and these above areas are where I put full storage. So I generally have products palletized and put up above. When I need more product, I would drop the product from here to here. Sometimes people want to put areas in the warehouse as bins, but they want them to be kind of general areas, and that's okay too. Macola is extremely flexible. You can have up to 8 alphanumeric digits with your bin number. So this particular company has a forklift, and when this guy takes this pallet and drops it anywhere in this area, he's going to scan this hanging barcode up here, which is going to indicate that zone or that area where that product should be. And that's very okay. Lots of companies do that. Versus having a specific area with a bin location for every product. So if you look at this area here, this is my aisle T, and this is location 17, this is location 18, and the arrow is indicating which bin that number is referring to. If we look a little closer, many times barcodes not only have text that you can read as a human, but you also have a barcode. This particular barcode is a 2D barcode. Lots of our customers like those because, one, you can put a lot of data. You could easily cram 8 digits in that, and you can scan it from the forklift without having to get off. That's a nice technique. Now you'll notice here that this pallet has a pallet label, and not only does it have the big barcode, but if you squint hard, you can actually see this smaller barcode here. This barcode, the smaller barcode, is used if you're up close and personal, and the larger one is used for the forklift driver to drop that particular pallet number in this bin. So those are just a few screenshots here of what a warehouse might look like. So what I'm going to work on now is we're going to use the warehouse management system, and we're going to look at how we can look at information in the warehouse, how we can do purchase order receiving, labeling, and put away using bins. Right? Now, to get started, I'm going to introduce you to two different applications that work together. Okay. So the first application we're going to look at is the WiSys Agility Explorer application. It runs on the desktop, and we built this, one, to do administrative work for the handheld software, and also to give you real-time views into the system that may or may not exist in Macola, and give you access to deep data in Macola, all in one location. The handheld we call Agility Mobile. And with Agility Mobile, I can have multiple companies. And just like I have multiple companies here, I can have multiple companies on the handheld. If I log in, I'm going to log in as Joe. So when I log in as Joe, I get just the icons Joe needs. When I log in here, I'm going to log into the same company. And if we do a little administrative work here, we'll go ahead and look at Joe's setup. So when I look at Joe as a system administrator, I can give Joe access to different things just by checking these little boxes. So this is a big time saver and the ability to do things. So if I look at the handheld, let's watch how this works. These are the icon Joe has right now. I want to give him another one called Put Away. So I'm just going to check that box and say Put Away. So now, if I go back to the handheld, I log out, I log in, and now I have Joe's screen, and notice that I have Put Away. So Put Away was not there, now it is there. That's how easy it is to just add something to somebody's mobile device. So we've got two applications, and one on the handheld and one on the desktop. So to get started with our picture today, I want to show you a picture of the item master. So you're used to looking at Macola in the Macola multi-level item view, or looking at item maintenance, or being able to do lookups on items, things like that. This is a grid like Excel, and I can arrange all these fields in the way that I want to look at them. So you'll see right now I am using the Bob view. I could easily switch to the way Mary likes to look at the data. So just by clicking these buttons here, I can filter. Mary wants to look at just lotted data. So anytime I click on the Mary view, I just get what Mary can see. If I click on the Bob view, Bob sees everything. I can also add more information. So if you use special fields out of your item master for different things, you know, if you've used crystal reports to be able to do stuff, you could just add a note field here. You could go down and find a user-defined field. You could drop that on the screen. So for today, I have these items that I am going to use, and I'm going to specifically focus on a s'more. I'm going to make a s'more. I'm going to work with s'mores and ship s'mores and move them around. So when I look at agility, I have the ability to look at all the Macola data in the item master and all the linked tables. So if I look at s'mores, and here I'm looking at a s'more, and you'll see that I have buttons across the bottom. These buttons give me integration to all the other linked tables in Macola that are relevant related to a s'more. So if I look at my open sales orders, you'll notice today I'm going to be working on 3 sales orders for s'mores. I have none in stock, so I've got a problem. So basically, I've got demand in my system, and I have need for s'mores, and it just so happens that I have a purchase order here, purchase order 92. So I can look at that purchase order. I can drill down and look at what's on the purchase order, and I can see what's been happening with this purchase order. I could even reprint the purchase order if I need to. That's an integration with Crystal. Okay, so just sitting right here, I'm just going to leave this open, and you can imagine, depending on what hat you're wearing in the company, you might have questions about what's going on. Right now, I'd be expediting pretty hard to get some s'mores to be received. So I'm going to use the handheld right now, and you are going to hear my printer print when it prints. So right now, I'm going to do some PO receiving. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to scan my purchase order that I'm going to receive. And you'll see here that for me to be able to do receiving, I have to have a valid PO. So once I scan, I'm going to scan my PO, and it's going to do a validation. If you don't have a barcode, that's still okay. You could type here, or you could do a lookup. So any PO that's out there that's printed is fair game to be received. But I am going to have to validate that I have a good PO. So that's good. Now, once I have the PO on the screen, it's going to validate that the item I want to receive is validated against that PO. Again, if I scanned the wrong thing by mistake, I'd get a bad sound and a bad color. And that's good, but why is that good? Because that means the guy in the shop isn't going to get yelled at later. It means that you're going to self-correct as you go. So in this case, I can scan my barcode for s'mores, and it's going to tell me you have never received this item before into the bin we're going to put it in. And so in my system, it is defaulted to receive to the dock bin. So when I receive any item that's binned, it's going to show up immediately on the dock, and I'll have visibility. Now in this case, there are other things I could scan. I could scan the barcode that comes from my supplier. If you have your linkage set up in Macola for your vendor cross-references, you could get their scan to get that item. It could also be a UPC code and a number of other fields that are user-definable that will match up. Now, at this point, not only is this item binned, but it's lotted. And I've heard many times before, hey, we're not going to use bins and we're not going to use lots because it's just too much extra work. And it is too much extra work because you have to write it all down and somebody has to key it in later. So when you begin to scan things, not only are you trying to scan to get the information right, but you're using a mobile device to get Macola updated as things happen. So it just so happens that my supplier has their manufacturer's lot number here for me to scan. And of course, this looks like the date code and the lot run of that batch. And then the quantity, you'll notice the quantity here is 144. I can receive any amount of that, and it will keep telling me the quantity left to receive. I'm going to keep it simple today and receive all 144. And I could do a rejection here. Now, before I just hit the enter button, this enter button down here, or the save button here, I want to point out that my printer is any valid network printer that is available to me. So I want to pick, by default, the one that's closest to me at the receiving dock. So when I hit save, you're going to hear it just printed my barcode label. Now, the really nice thing about WiSys is those barcode labels are saved inside of SQL Server. So as I begin to administer the system and set things up, labels related to shipping, manufacturing, receiving, compliance for people that you're trying to ship to, all these things are stored inside of the database. So you'll see here that this is a crystal label, and if you're familiar with the Macola table names, you realize quickly that you could add your own logo, and you can put anything on your label that you want, And your labels can either be small like this one, or even smaller if they have small little items in bags and things like that. Or you could print an 8.5 by 11 pallet label, things like that. They're all easy to print. And they're memorized in the system, and you can make them public for everybody, or you can make them for one particular company, or each item can have its own label. Lots of options there. And from the IT guy's point of view, when you save it in there, it's immediately available across your enterprise. So if you're in California and you're working on your Chicago location and you make the updates here for that particular customer and vendor, immediately in your enterprise, it's saved. You don't have to email somebody a crystal label and move it around from directory to directory. Okay, you'll notice here that the information doesn't look any different. That's because I just need to refresh this screen. When I hit the refresh, any of these screens have a little refresh button on them. When I hit those refreshes, it automatically goes out and rereads the Macola information. All of that's done inside the Macola tables. I can even drill down into the transaction and look at it there, so I can see the accounting and how that's working out. I can also drill down to the bin, and I can see the receiver. I can see the dock, where the product is, and the quantity. Again, if it's lotted, if you had multiple things there, you could see the lot. So all that is real-time connected. Okay, now that that material is physically at the dock, we would go through our QC process, and we have options on that to keep it simple today. I have just received that lot. It's immediately released, and I'm going to be able to put it away. When I do a put-away transaction, a put-away is really a transfer, but it's a special kind of transfer because it's going to only show me items that are at the dock. So these 3 items are sitting there waiting for put-away. So typically, I would walk up to the label that when you heard me print that label, I would have applied that label to the 144, and so I would have gone ahead, and now I'm going to scan that very label, get the item, and now I'm going to transfer that product. I'm going to put it on my tote, my forklift, my carrier, whatever, and I'm going to drive over, and I'm going to put it in bin A100. So there it is, and if I couldn't put 144 in there, I could put part of it in there, and I could put the rest somewhere else. But in this case, I'm going to put all 144 in that location. So just that quick, the data is updated. If I went to Macola, went into multi-level item view, if I look at s'mores, and if I look at s'mores here, I'll open it up. And if I drill down now, the same data that's here is the same data that I just did in Macola. Let's look at a couple of other options. First of all, just like I showed you in Macola, we have multi-level item view. So I walk up to an item, and I want to know what it is. And I would scan maybe the bin or have it default. And here I'm looking at s'mores, and I want to know what is that product and where is it. So here it shows me the same information that I just showed you in Macola, and the bin information too. There's my lot. So it's all there real time for me to look at. A couple other things here is we have issue, receipt, transfer, and that sort of thing. I can actually reprint a label here if I had a problem. So the number 2 scenario is now that we saw earlier that we had sales orders and we didn't have any material. Now the next question is what can we do with that material? I want to take the guesswork out of figuring out which orders can be filled. So I want to make decisions. And not only that, but the scenario today is even though I did a PO receipt, I'm still short on material. So I'm going to have to, make some decision here on who's going to get product. And I need customer-specific documents. So to manage that scenario, we're going to take a look at WiSys Order Pick Management, which is in Agility on the desktop. Then we're going to actually go out and get an item and put it on an order. And then we're going to print packing lists, and then we'll go through the process of billing and invoicing. Now, you can decide who does what job. I'm going to show you it could be done in the warehouse. As you begin to speed things up, instead of having customer service make all the shipping decisions, you could have somebody in the warehouse start making those from a radar screen. In fact, one of the scenarios that I saw just last month, I visited a customer, and every order that came in, every one, day by day, was printed and sent to the warehouse. It didn't matter if it was due today, next week, next month, next year. They just printed those orders and sent them to the warehouse. It was the warehouse guy's job to stick them in a folder on the day or week they should ship. And I can tell you, he didn't like that very much. It was always a mad dash and a scramble, because every time they printed those batch of orders came over the wire 3 times a day, he had to stop whatever he was doing, go look at every one of those orders and see if they were due today, and then file it if it wasn't. So let's take a look at some options that can make a lot of people's lives easier. Now, in this case, I'll just show you a little bit more about Agility briefly, but everything in Agility is done in these folders. So in a folder, like customer service, I have different components. So I have these folders, and we've named them. You can name them whatever you like: planning, inventory, order processing, warehouse, etc. And I also have a favorites folder of things I like to demonstrate because they're pretty popular. So if I were to take a component from down here called Order Pick Management, right mouse on it, I can save it to my favorites. I can save it to my desktop if I don't want all the overhead of this big menu system. Or if you're using Macola 10, you'll get a little option here that says Save to Macola 10. Now, once I add that to my favorites, it just shows up over here. And then I can arrange these in the order that I like to work on them as. So let me just click Order Pick Management. Now, Order Pick Management, I want you to think of as a radar screen. Think of it as your to-do list. Think of it as what happens next. Over on the right, we have a filter. The filter today is set up to look at my request date and my order location. There's some popular date ranges here, like Show Me Everything, or Show me a moving date range, show me last month, this week, yesterday, today, tomorrow, before today, after today. I like this one, on or before today, because it shows me everything in the system that could be shipped. And you'll see that there's alerts. There's alerts here on things that I need to pay attention to, like back orders and quantities to fill the back order. So you can see here that I have quite a bit of information to filter through. So to make shipping decisions, I could click on the order date. And if I click on that, you'll see that it sorts for me. Just like Excel, you could sort in different ways. I could click here on promise date. I could click here on customer. Maybe I want to click on customer and item. If I hold down the Shift key, I can have 2 sorts. I can release it just by clicking anywhere else. So now there's some other things that I want to do to make decisions. Not always is it about product and customers and items, but maybe I want to add some information about how things are supposed to ship. So I might want to add other things to the order. So what if I want to add ship via? So now in just one filtered grid, I could have all my LTL orders here, and I could save this view as LTL. Okay? And then I could change this and save it as UPS. And now I've got all my UPS orders. I'll save that as UPS. So if I look up here, I've now got default LTL and UPS, which is kind of cool because today I only want to focus on my LTL orders because the LTL orders are going to be for s'mores. So here is this particular order. So if I come down here and I could look for just s'mores. And so here are my 3 orders for just s'mores. A couple other useful things to do would be to group, and I could group by. So maybe I want to group by my customers. So I just want to look at one customer and all their orders. Maybe I want to build one shipment of everything that needs to go to customer 901. Or maybe I want to add item to that and see all the customer orders by item. What if I want to reverse it? What if I don't care about customer, I want to see just items? So there's lots of options to sort and filter through this data. Okay. Now that I've done that and you see how that works, I want to point out that this column is open for me to change the quantity to ship. So I'm going to have to play God here in a minute and decide who's going to get inventory. So let's just focus on s'mores. Okay, when I do that, I want to look at my orders, and I want to notice that I've got these orders here for these quantities. But how many items is that? If I add an option to the grid, I could look at some summary information, so I could do some totaling. And I have that many on order, but you'll notice I only have 144 in stock. And so I still am going to be a little bit short. So I can use this option here to fill all back orders. So I could, as production was happening or as POs are being received all day long, I can just click this of what I want to do and fill back orders, and it'll go out here and try and fill all the back orders. And it did it in the order I had it stacked in. So if you want to prioritize this by some customer method, you could do that. And then it'll start at the top and just crank right down through it and try and fill until it becomes exhausted. So in this case, I'm going to play God a little bit, and I'm going to make some changes. And I'm going to change that to 24. And that's just what I'm going to do to satisfy everybody here. And I'll go ahead and make those changes. Done. Okay, now that these are checked, I'm going to go ahead and print pick tickets. So if you like your pick ticket, you can keep it. However, if you want to use our pick ticket, you could adopt it. It's a crystal report, and you could put whatever else you want on it. This is driven off of our view of data. So if you have a pick ticket that you want to modify, you just target it to our view, and you can run it with this functionality. I've got 3 pick tickets here, and so I'll just go ahead and print them. So I'm going to physically print them because when I go to the warehouse, I don't want to get confused. And that way it helps me keep things in order, and as I pull things, I can leave the pick ticket with the physical order. Because at some point, as a material handler, I need to hand off something to the next guy to do their next thing. Okay. Did they print correct? Yep. Once they print correct, they fall off the grid. So that's why I call it a radar screen. As you begin to deal with your orders, you know, Bob over in the shipping department in the office there, once those orders are out for picking, I don't have to worry about them on this grid. The only orders that show up on this grid are orders that are status 1 and off credit hold. And you could add more SQL behind that if you have special rules. There are other views of what's happening. So if I look at this order called Order Status View, you can see here I can again use on or before today, and I can look at any specific order status. So right now, I want to look at just pick tickets that have been printed. So these are my open pick tickets out in the warehouse. These are the ones that are in process. And I'll just leave this here because as things move, we'll come back and refresh that. Okay, going to the handheld, we're going to go ahead and ship some product. And I need to add a component. So I'm going to come back here real quick, drop in for Joe, go to Joe's device, and I'm going to add shipping and unshipping. And so what's going to happen is I'm set up in confirm ship method, which means as I begin to pick items to an order, these orders will move to the confirm ship status automatically. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go begin with orders. And it doesn't matter what order I go in, I can go in any order. So in this case, I'm going to start with order 83, and I'm going to physically walk out into the warehouse. My pick ticket would generally have the location printed on it. I would scan the item, and it wants to know what bin are you getting them out of. Again, if I make a mistake, oops, I fix it right now. So A100 is valid for that item, and now I need the lot number, and I'll get that, and the quantity is 48. So here, that order has now moved to confirm ship. If I refresh this screen, you'll notice that 83 disappeared. So as the boss or the head office or customer service, if you want to know what's happening, you can look here and you can see how far somebody is through an order. Okay, we're done with that. Again, if we came back to this order and scan the item, you'll notice that it says quantity remaining to ship is 0. So I have picked everything I need for that item on that order. So we're going to reduce the ability of overshipping right there. And that can be turned on or off whether you want to allow that or not. Okay, 83, I'm moving on. Let's go back to shipping. And here I'm going to go to 140, the item, and again the bin and the lot. And the quantity, it says 96, but my pick ticket says there's only 72 available. So even though it says 92, I'm only going to go after 72. And if you like it to say 72 on the screen, that's easy to change. So that order's on my cart now, and I've got that order picked. I'm going to go get one more order. Item, bin, and lot. And in this case, I need 24. Okay, so we're done with that. Again, if we come back here, open this back up again, and we look at the orders, and I've coded them with these barcodes, or this PO numbers, so I can see now that all 3 of these have shipped. Now, on the handheld, there is an option. So depending on when you want to do this, you can actually print a packing list. So as long as it hasn't been invoiced and billed, I can still print a packing list. So when I do that, I'm going to print it to my screen here. And when I do that, I have an option here to show you what that picking document or that packing list looks like. So for each of these orders, if I need a custom packing list, I could do that too. I could have a unique packing list with special information on it, even instructions on how to pack the order, could be all private for one customer. So it's all about capturing the rules in the system. I can also unship an order. If I wanted to come in and grab an order and unship it for whatever reason, I could take it back to the pick status. Okay. Now, if you're using UPS or FedEx, you can use WiSys. We have a shipping system that does that, that's fully integrated. Or if you're using Starship or you're using V Technologies for ShipGear, this would be adequate for that too. WiSys would actually capture all the pallet and carton buildup. And if you want to know with bills of lading or with packing lists and have all the detail of what goes in every box, we can do that. To finish out the process, I'm going to look at another component. This one's called order billing. So right now I have 4 orders that I've been working on today, and it could be an end-of-the-day process where you want to bill all your orders and print invoices. I have a component down here that is for billing and invoicing, or there's an option here with this billing option that I'm using right now to do both billing and invoicing. So let's just take a look at that. So I'm going to check on these 3 orders that I've been working on, and I'm going to click the billing button. Maybe before I do that, I'll point out here that you could add your shipping charges, or if ShipGear or Starship or WiSys has already done that, these amounts would be populated, and other comments and things like that, and you can expose lots of information along here. I'm going to push the billing button. It says, do you wish to invoice? That's a yes or no option. I'll just say yep. And we'll go ahead and print invoices for all those. Notice because I captured all the information, the bin and the lot number, I have all that information available to me. The third issue here is inventory counting. And it's really important, especially if you've got a bank financing your inventory, things like that, to be able to count your inventory, at least on a yearly basis. So some people do it twice a year. You know, I have a customer in Texas that says, Bob, I'm going to tell you why I'm buying this system. I want my people not to have to work over the holidays. I want them to be there with their family between Christmas and New Year's. And he thought that was the most compelling reason to do inventory counting. So to do counting, we want to reduce the time it takes to count the inventory. We want to get rid of all the writing it down and keying it in, only to not be able to read somebody's handwriting. And how do I see what's been counted? We're going to be able to show you that. And I just don't want to spend the time to shut my business down to count inventory. You know, the truth is, if you get really good at this, your inventory is going to get to 99.5% high in terms of valid, and you're not even going to want to count inventory. It's just going to be that good all the time. So let's go back to the tools, and let's look how we can do that. So to take advantage of the tools from Exact and Macola, we don't have to redo everything in WiSys. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to come over to Counting Inventory. I'm going to create a batch weekly. My location is MA. My starting bin is A0 and A to the end, to Z. So I'm going to run this batch. I'm going to go out and create it. And we can look at it. And we're done. So once we do that, let's look at what we've got before us. A couple of things. In inventory, under cycle counting, we've got some views set up to make the controller's life pretty easy. Cycle count tag status. Here's weekly. So these are all the tags for my bins in row A. Not only that, I can see cycle count tags not counted. So these have not been counted. They're blank for status. So you can see here, s'mores is right here. So in this case, I'm probably not going to have any because I shipped them all. So I'll go count something else. And I will count maybe gel or something like that. So let's go to the handheld. And I'm going to begin to count. So I would log into the batch. And I'm going to go up to bin A100, scan that or type it in. And then I would scan the item, gel, and have it come up. And then it wants to know the lot. And then it's going to want the count. So what is the count? I'm going to type in 100. So when I type that in, it's going to have updated this tag file for me automatically. So it's not on this one. It's over here now. Cycle count status. So you can see here that this particular item has been counted. And I got a pretty big variance. So this gives you the opportunity to see what's happened. And you'll notice I didn't write a darn thing down. I might have gone to that bin, and when I count things, I'm going to put a sticker on it so I know I've counted that item. We also have a couple other reports here that would be like a crystal report. So I can set these at different thresholds, and I can look at my filter would be, I want to look at the weekly batch and set a variance for 25 units. So anything that's off by 25 or more is going to show up. And I've got a variance by quantity and a variance by cost. And I could set that up too. So maybe a variance of $10 or whatever. And so I've got that.